All right, everybody, welcome back to another Canada Immigration Live Q&A. I'm here with Alicia Backman-Beharry. How you doing, Alicia?
I'm well, Mark. I'm trying to hang in there. It's snowing here in Calgary and like big flakes that's kind of staying on the ground. So it's a little bit dispiriting when it's, April 20th and it's still snowing.
Yes, it is painful, very painful. And I know when I was looking at my vehicle this morning when I decided to come down to the office down here and work from here, yeah, the amount of snow that was stacked up on top was very, very disappointing. But not quite as disappointing as this right here. And this was Minister Fraser yesterday giving an update on the strike situation. And many, many people, as you can probably see already, Alicia, are asking the question, when will the IRCC strike, when is it going to be over? And other people are asking, what is the impact of the strike? And really, what does it mean for immigration processing? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it is interesting. The government has given a list. So there's a government website, and you can go to the click drop down and take a look at every single department and what departments might be affected. But the practical reality is that it's going to slow things down. So immigration, refugee, citizenship, Canada is for sure impacted, which means that inland processing is going to be significantly disrupted. Um, there is a different union that is in charge of the IRCC processing members for outside Canada posts. So I guess the one silver lining is that outside Canada applications theoretically should still continue to be processed. Inside Canada is a different story, and it's also going to affect everything else. So it's the hearings, it's the tribunals, it's the ESDC, right? Anybody who's trying to get an LMIA approved as an employer is in a bad situation right now. I'm worried about whether, named employees can get added to LMIAs right now. So we're going to for sure be feeling the effects of this strike.
Yeah, it's going to be painful. And I think to a large extent, if this drags on, you guys, it's going to be no different than the pandemic. So just at the very moment when we found ourselves finally lifting out of the drudgery and the pain and the suffering of the pandemic years, we are being thrust right back into it. And it's hard to, as people directly impacted, our clients and our practices directly impacted by this. And as we've experienced this, and all of you have experienced this over the last few years, it's really, really sad to see that we're jumping back into it. And, it serves no purpose to lay blame. At the end of the day, people have a right to earn the money they feel like they should have. They have the right to strike. The government has the right to say, no, we're not going to pay you this. And that's why we run into these deadlocks. But at the end of the day, the reality is we just hope that they'll sort it out as quickly as possible so that the average person like you who's looking to immigrate or study or work or whatever it might be, even apply for citizenship, or a company who's looking to bring in foreign workers to meet critical labor shortages, that they're going to take this into consideration and that cooler heads will prevail and that they'll be able to resolve this. Because at the end of the day, it's hard. If this was a private company, I guess there would be more, there'd be more incentive, because there's a danger that if you don't deal with things properly, companies can actually fold. But obviously the government isn't that way, which in my mind, Alicia, it makes me a little nervous because people are still, the government is the government. It's not going to go bankrupt, or it's not going to, at least, in the traditional sense of that, it's not, it doesn't have to play by the same rules necessarily as, say, a private company does. So I don't know what your thoughts are, Alicia.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one other good thing is that so far CBSA officers are still operating, and so the borders
Mhm.
should still be operating. We should still have people coming in and out of airports. We should still have the transport of goods. So in that respect, it's not quite as horrendous as the pandemic, which
Mhm.
I mean is not a good bar
Ugh,
to
no.
measure things against. So this is definitely not good. It's so frustrating. It's so hard, guys, to be able to predict processing times or how these things are going to affect applications or now what the contingency plans will be. Um, so from an immigration lawyer's perspective, it's really bad because it just throws so much uncertainty into how things will unfold.
Yeah, that's an understatement. All right. Well, on a more positive note, we love to hear where you're tuning in from. So give us a shout out. Thesura, it's good to see you. Thanks for connecting. One of our long standing followers and past subscriber to the Express Entry step-by-step course and a part of that group. So Thesura, great to have you here. We've got Lima who's connecting in from Quebec. Thanks for connecting in. And I've got a few people that are posting some comments, but we really want to hear where you're tuning in from. John, it's a wonderful day watching from Fort McKay. Do you know where Fort McKay is, Alicia?
Sounds super familiar, and I'm trying to figure out where it
Is that
is. Now I gotta.
Ontario? Or I don't recognize a Fort McKay in Alberta, but John, you'll have to clarify that for us. Joe, hey Joe, he says, Mark and Alicia listening from Calgary. Appreciate your never-ending effort on helping people. You're very welcome, Joe. Very welcome.
Hey, Fort McKay's in
Okay.
Alberta.
Is it? Is it? Where?
Yeah, it's in Alberta, and I'm zooming out because it's in northeastern Alberta.
Oh, really? Okay. Interesting. There we go. We've got Timothy who's connecting in. He's currently on a study permit. Let's see. We've got Zafira is over in Sudbury. Mila on Facebook connecting in is over from connecting in from Morocco. Great to have you. I had to post that, Alicia. Apparently, Nefemi says that your voice is so soothing. That's awesome. Well, hey, we aim to make it a pleasant experience, you guys. Hossein's over in Vancouver. Great to have you here. Jonathan's over in Dakar. Hi. We got Mehdi, who's in Algeria. Greetings from you, Mehdi. Iffy is in Regina, Saskatchewan. Great to have you here. Hardeep's connecting in from India. Welcome, Hardeep. We've got Gregorio, who's tuning in from Niagara Falls. And John is in BC. Don't know what part of BC John is tuning in from. Casey, hey Casey, welcome. Good to have you. Casey is, Casey, I think, you're the Express Entry Masterclass. We have our last Masterclass session tonight. And Casey, it's great to have you. We'll see you tonight at 4 o'clock. Hopefully you're able to come back and join. Thanks for giving us a shout out. Casey is one of the subscribers to the Express Entry step-by-step course. And so I love when people jump in there. I wonder how you get that handle. How do you get just a straight letter on YouTube? That's great. R is from Jamaica. Yes, Timothy's Toronto. We got that. Anoop is over in India. Great to have you guys here. John is in Duncan. So John's in Duncan, BC. And Juste, hey, great to have you connecting in as well. Another subscriber to the Express Entry course from Calgary, originally from Lithuania. Excellent. Anoop says, hey, I'm from India, but hi from Mississauga and India both. Sounds good. And then Casey says, yes, subscribe to your Express Entry course. Oh, thank you, Casey. Casey says, I encourage everyone to do the same. Best decision. Should have done it earlier. Well, that's good. It's been awesome. The group has been fantastic, Alicia, that have been joining us in the master classes. And it's, just so much fun. Those of you who are wondering, okay, well, what is this all about? Let's see if I can flip over here. So if you go to the link below in the description, it'll take you to this. You'll get access to this. But as you scroll down here, the course right now, the Express Entry one, you can see today's the 20th. This is the last day of the masterclass. But anyone who subscribes will get the benefit of being able to attend future masterclasses as well. And so we've decided to open that up. So people that have purchased before, and I think Casey, maybe you subscribed before, I can't remember, and just now are starting to use it. But anyone can subscribe right now and get access to this and join us in upcoming masterclasses. We're already getting the date set for the masterclass next month. And there's just so many people that are going through that it makes sense to do it, or at least try to do it relatively, in short periods of time, in short periods of gaps, I guess, between the time in which we run these. So great, excellent. Okay, so thank you, Casey. All right, let's see who else we've got here. Oh, Alvalino, Chris, great to have you. Lima, Peru. Nihar is over in India. And let's see here. What else do we have? We've got Fernando, who's hello to both of you from snowy Manitoba. Well, it's snowy here too. And
It's worse in Manitoba. It's way worse in
yeah,
Manitoba.
it weighs. That's true. That is true. Ours is melting as fast as it hits the ground, generally speaking. So we can't complain too bad. Okay, we've got Princess Darlington from Nigeria. Thanks for connecting in. Great. Okay, well, we had a chance to do a few little shout outs, and that's great. What do you think? People are always asking this, Alicia, so we'll start off right from the get go. Like, what do you think the express entry is going to look like? Do you think they're going to continue to do rounds of invitations, or are they going to pause as a result of this strike? What do you think?
That's a good question. Um, I wonder if they will just try to process all the people that they've invited so far, because we do know that they did a lot of rounds, right? They did a lot of 7,000 back-to-back rounds. And so in aggregate for March, we had about 21,000 invitations. And then, of course, we had the one in April 12th. And so there was a smaller draw, but that's still quite a few people that remain to be processed. And I don't know if they'll try to reallocate to overseas officers or what they'll try to do, because the other thing that we were hearing was that biometrics appointments are now not happening. And so if you need to do your biometrics for applications, that's not going to happen either. And so I don't know what they'll do if you can't get the biometrics done. It's going to delay processing on everything else. One thing I would say to people in terms of biometrics is to double check online and see if your biometrics are still valid. You can actually enter in your details on the website and get a little printout of that. So if you do have biometrics in the past, get a printout, show that your biometrics are valid. But in terms of overall processing, I don't even know if I want to speculate on whether they will completely pause draws or just continue on and hope for the best.
Yeah, yeah, it is quite a messy situation. All right, let's jump to our first question. Okay, this is from Gerbax. I want to apply for a tourist visa from India. Does IRCC strike affect my application? So you kind of mentioned this a little bit, but do you anticipate that the strike impacting people that are applying for visitor visas from abroad?
Well, I guess it depends on where the office is that they're going to be processing it from. And it used to be fairly transparent. You had to apply to the country of your nationality or a country of your residence if you had proper residence there. Now it's a bit more complex. They will reallocate those files depending on their processing capabilities. So if that application is going to get processed by officers outside of the country, theoretically, it should continue to get processed by officers outside of the country. But if it gets reallocated to an office inside Canada, that's where probably there will be an effect.
All right, next question. This one is from Hossein, and he says, Hello, Mark. I've been asked to provide two police certificates for my spousal application, but one of them does not apply to me as I left my home country when I was 16. Do I need to provide one? This is
Mhm.
I got a pretty easy answer to this one.
Mhm.
Alicia, do you want to tackle that?
Yeah, so you don't have to provide a police certificate if you were under the age of 18 the last time that you lived there for 6 months or more in a row. However, if you've gone back to your home country over the years and you were staying there for longer periods of time and it ended up being a continuous 6 month period after the age of 18, you would need to provide a police certificate. If immigration asked you for that police certificate in error, you could definitely provide them a letter of explanation. You can say, hey, I left before I was 18 years old. Here's proof that I left before I was 18 years old. Here's my passport stamps showing that I haven't returned there for continuously 6 months or more since I've turned 18. And, please waive the requirement for me to take this police certificate because the policy shouldn't apply. However, sometimes the path of least resistance is the way to go if it's relatively easy to get a police certificate from your country. Just get one and then provide it and say you don't think it's required, but here it is anyways.
Yeah, great question. All right, next we have here, this one is from Yoonji. Thank you for the Q&A. I have the same knock for Canada and overseas work experience. How should I calculate primary occupation? Start year. Can I include period working as a manager overseas? Well, this one here is definitely one that I would probably do this to. Let me get this set up properly right there. I don't know, Alicia, if you can make sense of that particular question. Um, this is obviously, you guys. I want to reiterate to people that there's a reason that that my good friend here gave the shout out for the course, because the course is designed to walk you through all of these things. And just a little bit of a backstory as well on the Canadian Immigration Institute on this course. Let's see if I can flip my screen around. This course was originally created because I didn't feel like people overseas would actually be able to retain me as their lawyer if I was in Canada. So when I first started doing this, I thought, well, there's got to be a way to help people, because there's so many overseas agents that are just taking people's money and just destroying their lives, and people don't know any different. So if I can offer a course that's affordable, that will teach people how to prepare and submit their own applications, how to avoid the most common pitfalls and things like that, then okay, that's great. And so, much to my great surprise and benefit, I found that there are many, many people overseas, no matter where they are in the world, that are more than happy to retain our law firm, hire Alicia or I to help them with their express entry applications. And so we've got this wonderful world where we offer the course, and I actually have a lot of people who take the course and then decide, you know what, I just want Alicia to help me review the application, or you, Mark. And often in those cases, I just refund the course fee to them, because the work that they put in learning how to do it on their own makes our job that much easier when we are working collaboratively with them to prepare and submit. So these questions, when we get a lot of these express entry questions, understand that this course is super, super comprehensive. It covers virtually every aspect of the entire journey that someone would go on if they were exploring the possibility of coming to Canada, from learning the basics to starting with your profile, your eligibility, to completing your profile and submitting it. And then after you get your invitation to apply, there are sections for completing your EAPR if you're a principal applicant and you're just single. And if you have a spouse or dependent children, there's modules specifically for that. And then the best one of all is module 6, which is all about the documents. And so we get a lot of questions from people who ask, what should I do in these circumstances, and how do I structure things? Well, there's over 10 hours of on-demand content, plus the 4 hours of master classes that I hold periodically. And all of that is there to help. So if you have any questions, I keep reiterating that is available for anyone. You can subscribe right now, and the link is below. I also want to point out that it's super easy to slide over to, and I'll just share my screen again here, to slide over to our website, click on Speak to a Lawyer, and you can easily book a consult with Alicia and walk through the whole process. Myself, we're all here for you to be able to connect and get whatever assistance that you need. Okay. Now, I've given you a little bit of time to ponder over this, Alicia. So can you make sense of what Yunji is asking here?
Yeah, I think the main part of the question is, how do you calculate the primary occupation start year? And so generally, you're going to look at, when did you graduate from university or a college course or a diploma, and when were you first eligible to be hired in that job? And so if your first job was a manager job and it was a tier 0 job, that's a little bit unusual. You don't normally go directly from school to a managerial position, but maybe. Normally, you would put the first year that you were eligible to work in the occupation that you're claiming as your primary occupation. So whatever that year is what you'd normally put. And if there's anything that's a little bit nuanced, or you need to explain about how that all happened and why you selected that year, put it into your letter of explanation. We talk with clients about that a lot, and we strategize with them in terms of how do you add key information in your letter of explanation, and that can make all the difference.
Perfect. All right. Next one, we'll go here with Hardeep. And Hardeep says, hello, Mark. Got an AOR on the 15th of February, non-express entry, but did not receive medical request yet. Any idea? So this is a pretty common thing. When you're filing, and I'll just jump in. So, when you've got an acknowledgement receipt on February, 15th, non-express entry. So I'm assuming it's probably a PNP or something like that. When you submit your PR through the PR portal for some of the programs, I just did a review just yesterday for a PNP. It used to be called the paper-based, and it doesn't specifically ask for immigration medicals up front. So once you've completed, reached the acknowledgement of receipt stage, then at some point they may, if you've never done a medical before, ask you to provide it, or you may be exempt, at least for the time being, until I think the end of, maybe it's October of next year. The policy that they have that doesn't require people to obtain new immigration medicals if they've had one within 5 years, that'll still be there. But yeah, this is very common. And February, like we're April here. So there's becoming an expectation that things are going to be instant, and they're simply not, especially the paper-based. And if you look at the processing times and you kind of factor things out, usually that medical request, if it comes, is not going to happen until the latter part of the application processing. So it could sit on a pile for a year before they ultimately send you out the medical request. So keep that in mind, Hardeep, and you're still early in the game. And I'm assuming that's February the 15th, 2023. But yeah, there's no issues or no concerns. Any
And Mark,
additional thoughts, Alicia?
yeah, I did want to jump in. I actually just wrote an article about the provincial nominee programs, and I was writing it specifically about the Alberta provincial nominee program because there's been some updates to that program, and we were able to put that on our website yesterday. So if you guys are interested in learning a little bit more about how those PNPs work, a lot of people don't realize that it's a two-stage process and how kind of complex it is to have this. Some of them are express entry based and some of them are non-express entry based. And so you've got a paper application, quote unquote paper application, which is now done through the PR portal versus the express entry linked applications. And I give some information on updates to specifically what's been happening in Alberta and some, nominations are up, and they're going to actually have a dedicated healthcare pathway in Alberta where 30% of the express entry linked application nomination spots are going to go through healthcare positions for 2023 allocations. So take a read of that if you're interested.
Perfect. Thank you, Alicia. All right, I got to adjust this. Somehow I have managed to alter our background. Okay, let's keep zipping through. Next one is from Lima. Lima says, hi, Mark. A lot of applicants received an update yesterday, background in progress. What does it mean?
So background in progress is normally background checks, background security clearances sometimes. So they're going to be double checking everything in your application on that little toolbar, and hopefully it means that they're actually continuing to do something in moving your application forward. But it's not specific really when it says background in progress.
Okay, next question here. This one is, let's just see here. This is from Mady. And Mady says, I have a question in regards to proof of funds. If my father sends me the amount needed in my account just after I get my ITA, and he adds a letter explaining the gift that he gifted it to me, is it okay?
So maybe take a look at the settlement funds requirements. So if you are an outside Canada applicant, if you're under the federal skilled worker category, then you have to prove those settlement funds. If you're under CEC, you technically don't have to prove the settlement funds. If you're under a PNP, then it depends. It depends on which program stream you got nominated in, whether you have to prove some sort of settlement fund requirement or the ability to settle in that province. In general, you want to be able to show that those funds were in your account accessible for 6 months. So you always want to have that 6-month window showing that it was there. If you're getting those funds right after you get ITA, there's a little bit of a concern that the officer might say, well, wait a minute, those funds haven't been there for the full 6 months. You can do your best to explain, but there is potentially a risk on that.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I want to share with people as well, we'll flip back here. This is the actual express entry course. And so in here, I have a lesson 49. Yes, there's that many lessons on specifically this issue. And this happens a lot, you guys, where individuals don't necessarily have the settlement funds, but they want to get them from family. Well, I have, ultimately, we have seen success with people preparing what we call a gift deed. And we have samples of these gift deeds, one from India, an example for Canada. And, what if I don't have the funds? We have lots of downloads and resources and other explanations that are all built into the course, as well as you can see over 20-minute video right here explaining how proof of funds work. So like Alicia said, anytime that you divert from the specific instructions of IRCC, which is showing that you've got those funds in your account for 6 months, and part of the reason they ask for that is they want to make sure, like Alicia said, that it's actually your funds and you have them available to you. We're in a world of this show money world, right? Where people, and we've seen it, will pool money together and then one person will put it in their account and they'll apply for their visa and then they'll pull it out and another person will put it in their account, and none of them actually have it. We see it a lot in the context of study permits, at least outside of the GIC world. But when it comes to express entry, like I said, if you don't have those funds and you're getting them from someone, there's always a risk that an officer will say, well, I'm not satisfied that that's actually available for you to settle in Canada and that it wasn't a loan, for instance. But one of the ways that we try to work around that, because sometimes there are just certain realities, is to actually go through, whoops, wrong one here, this one, is to go through and prepare something that we call a gift deed. And I'll just pull up a little sample here. And this is one that I see commonly in India in this kind of a format that basically talks about the importance, it's a formal legal document that says, I'm giving this money away to my child, to settle in Canada, and it is irrevocable. It is a gift that is given with no strings attached. I have no expectation that I will be paid back, and it is for their purpose to settle in Canada. And we've had relatively good success using formal, legally sworn, valid, binding documents to show that to show that the funds are truly being transferred, and being able to show the source of them from a parent's account to your account. So in some cases we can do that, but boy, it's got to be done correctly. So I'll leave it at that. Okay, let's see who is next here. Next on our list is Anitha. Anitha says, hi, Mark and Alicia, good afternoon. Post-grad expires in November of this year. What's the best option? Whether to opt in for this new 18-month post-grad work permit or to apply online, waiting to hear your suggestions. Thank you. So what are you telling people right now? Like, should they opt in or should they just formally apply?
Yeah, this is a tricky area because also I've heard some other lawyers have said that if you do opt into the new one, it's going to cancel the current document. And so that can throw a wrench in the works depending on where you're at in your immigration process, whether you need to have a work permit, a study permit, like, what's going on with the rest of your plans for the future. So if getting in this opt-in is going to automatically be the best way to extend your status, maybe that's the way you go. I've had consults with people whose passport was expiring, and then the problem is the opt-in won't actually allow you to opt in if your passport isn't valid for the entire time. And then the person thought, oh well, I'm not eligible for the program, and that's not true. You can still apply, it's just that you can't do the opt-in. So please know that even if for some reason the opt-in procedure isn't working for you, you can still make that application. Mark, I hope you revive your PGWP 18-month course, because
Mhm.
I think it'll be super helpful for people. Because if you do make the full application for the change of conditions, you're going to do that questionnaire, you're going to do the IMM 5710, but please make sure that you follow the specific instructions, because there's new program guidance in terms of how you do the post-grad 18-month extension. It's technically not an extension, but it's a public policy program. But there are specific ways that you need to answer that questionnaire and how you need to fill in the answers on the form itself, and then letters that you have to attach to prove that you meet the program eligibility. So be really careful. The fees are confusing in terms of how you pay for this application as well. But if in doubt, make sure that you are properly doing an application. I've also heard that a whole bunch of the opt-in procedures are not giving you confirmation. There's no way to actually make sure that you've properly done the opt-in. They don't give you the proper confirmation emails sometimes, or there's glitches in the system where it's completely unclear whether you've actually properly opted in. So if in doubt, make sure that you're applying for this before it expires and before your status expires, depending on the expiry of your current document.
Yes. I just was notifying Igor. We set it up, but it looks like the link, when you click on it, is broken. So we're going to, it's all there. The link is just, we revived it from last year. And so we'll make sure that we get that up and running for you guys so that you can access it. Yeah, it's hard, Alicia. Like, we've had situations where people have thought they've applied properly, and immigration is ruthless. And if you didn't do exactly what they asked you to do, for example, I had a consult just yesterday with some clients that had, she'd come and used her first year of IEC and then thought she could just apply to extend her work permit from within Canada to recapture the remaining 12 months. And, and of course it was rejected, and they thought, well, that doesn't make sense. We'll apply for restoration, right? And, so I had to explain to them, no, you actually have to go back to the drawing board. And so, but they didn't know. And immigration, when they refused the work permit, they didn't say, oh, we see you still have another year of eligibility because you're from the UK. You need to reapply through IEC. No, they just say, you don't have you need an LMIA and you don't have one. So yeah, it's painful. It's painful. Okay, we got a bunch of really good questions that are, it looks like Igor is on it. I just sent him a message. He's going to fix it. Okay, so Timothy says, I'm currently on a study permit. Would submitting an express entry profile hamper me applying for a postgrad afterwards?
So, no, I mean, if you're on a study permit and you're going to be eligible, so make sure it's a designated learning institution with a program at that DLI that's eligible for PGWP. Please, please, please don't do a 1-year program. Please do a 2-year program if at all possible. So, if you are on a 1-year program, is there some way to stack your program so that you do complete 2 years within like back to back study period times and then apply for the postgrad work permit? But generally, you're eligible to apply for express entry when you have the minimum eligibility plus the CRS that you want. So as long as you meet minimum eligibility plus the CRS, you can apply for that express entry, be put into the pool. When you do the PGWP, yes, technically it's a temporary work permit application, so you still do need to show temporary intent. You still should talk about the fact that you have a dual intent, right? You've applied for your express entry application, and you also have the ability to return to your home country if and when required.
Perfect. We've got a lot of really, really good questions here. Uzair says, hi, Mark and Alicia. I did my upfront medical exam for PRN. The type is written as worker, non-EDE. Will this be an issue? Oh, we see a lot of this for sure. And once again, there are samples in the course that explain this issue. But Alicia, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, and it depends on how this particular office codes it in terms of what they enter. I don't know about you, Mark. I have never seen immigration come back and say it has the wrong code on it.
Never.
So as long as it's a proper panel physician and you've made sure that you followed the instructions in terms of getting that medical done in time within the time deadline given, those are the key things. Usually it doesn't matter how it's coded, whether it's worker or non-worker.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Here's a good here. I'll pull this one up. It's probably good to talk about it. So Hardeep says, sorry guys, where is Cedric these days? So Cedric is striking out on his own. So he's going to be setting up his own little firm, and so at the end of this month, in just a week or so, that will be his the end of the run with Holthe Immigration Law, and he will be striking out on his own. And you'll also see Chanel has decided to also move on and explore some different opportunities. And so Alicia and I are yes, here to help you. And Igor is starting his articles with us shortly as well. So we're really excited for where things are going. But yes, we're sad to see Cedric and Chanel go, but we're happy to have had an opportunity to have them work with us, and they contributed significantly to the firm. And we're so grateful for the time that they spent with us and wish them all the best. All right, let's see next here. Okay, all right, let's see if we can figure this one out. So this is from Justin John. Hello, Mark and Alicia. I'm a visitor in Canada and almost 6 months. Okay, I hope you're not working illegally, but want to stay longer. Can I go to the US, stay there for 2 weeks, and come back to Canada? Thanks for the answer.
So John or Justin, we would definitely need to talk with you and figure out a little bit more about what's your country of nationality. Yeah, what's going on with your situation? How are you supporting yourself in Canada? What's your long-term plan? Do you want to try to, apply for a study permit or a work permit? Are you looking for eventually becoming a permanent resident in Canada? Because as a visitor in Canada, there's not much that you can do. You can only visit, you can't study, and you can't work. And so most of the time, you're not even allowed to apply for a work permit directly from inside Canada as a visitor. So it limits your options. Make sure to reach out, book a consult with us. Unless you are somebody who doesn't require a visa to the US, it's very dangerous to go down to the US. You need to make sure that you have proper authorization to enter the US and then to come back into Canada if that's something you're contemplating doing. And you still have to prove that temporary intent. So you've got to show that you're going to remain in Canada only as long as authorized and only as a visitor. And the longer you're here, the more an immigration officer goes, how are you supporting yourself for over 6 months without working?
Yeah. All right, next question. This one is from Mihak, and she says, What happens if I've applied for a police clearance certificate in India but do not get it before submitting the EAPR? So essentially, she's running out of time with her ITA. Do I explain it in an LOE? Will it cause a rejection of my application? She's an inside Canada applicant. We
Yeah,
get a lot
and
of
we've
these, and we're seeing these more often now, especially from India. They didn't used to be a problem, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, we've run into this a few times. This makes me super nervous. I would never want to have a completed EAPR without a police certificate. So if you look at the program completeness check on Express Entry, it does say that if you can prove that as soon as you got your ITA, you went out and you applied for the police certificate, you've got proof that you applied, you've got your receipts and your confirmations, and for some reason there's been some delay, then you can try to justify all that. But there's still a risk that the IRCC officer could refuse your application for not having a proper police certificate on it. The other thing that I've told people to do is if they do have family members who are still in India, you can apply to a local police station. If you look up the police instruction directions for India, it gives you a number of ways, right? You can go through BLS, you can go through the embassy or the consulate, or you can actually have a family member go in person to the local police office. Those local police office searches tend to come back in much faster timeframes than the embassy ones do. So you can do both, right? You can make sure that you've already submitted your application to the embassy and prove that you've done so. But in the meantime, I would really suggest you do whatever you can to try to at least get a local police office search and then show the officer that you have applied to the consulate, and that will be submitted once you receive it.
Yeah. And I just want to reiterate as well that the instructions here, if you don't have it, say in exceptional circumstances, they may accept, proof that you made best efforts. But, guys, if you have received an ITA 2 months ago and it's 2 days before and you're requesting your police clearance certificate now and you're telling IRCC, oh, it's not going to get back in time, they're going to give you far less leeway or forgiveness than someone who submitted their police clearance certificate the very day or the next day after getting their invitation to apply. So keep that in mind, and you can see not a guarantee of acceptance. So anytime you divert from the specific instructions that IRCC gives here, you open up discretion to the officer to choose maybe something that you just won't like.
Mhm.
All right. Let's see here. Vita asks this, and I'll just touch on it briefly. What are the chances of getting a provincial nomination OINP for someone with an LMIA? I'll just say blanket. We need a whole bunch more information, but obviously, anyone on an LMIA in any province is going to have a greater likelihood of more opportunities and access to a nomination than someone who is not, someone on an open work permit or otherwise. And why? Because one of the pillars of all of the provincial nominee programs is the demonstrating the ability to economically establish yourself in that province. And if you're working and you've got a job offer, and you not only have a job offer, but your work permit is employer specific, and that employer has shown that there's no other Canadian or permanent resident in that province that can take that position, there's going to be, you're going to be a pretty strong candidate for the purposes of PNPs. Now, the ONP, just like any other province, their rules change, their streams are altered. Depends on the demand for the positions, and there's only so many spots to go around. So, but simple answer, the chances, I'll say they're as good as anyone, depending upon the occupation as well. Because sometimes some PNPs only target skilled tier 3 or higher, and others don't. And so that's another factor to take into consideration.
Yeah, just keep in mind too for the OINP and some of the other provincial nominee programs, in order to have a valid job offer, the employer needs to check certain boxes, right? The employer needs to be of a certain size and make a certain amount of income and have a registered business office and be able to show that they are properly incorporated and they make, more revenue than the set amounts. So just make sure that your employer checks all the boxes for being an eligible employer under the program also.
Yes. All right. Shout out to Baba here. Hello from France. And I'm going to pull and highlight Barry Baba's message here because, my goodness, if you speak French, you're from France, it's your language of habitual use. And, you're going to have far more opportunities to come to Canada than pretty much any other person. There's the Francophone mobility program, which basically any company that wants to hire you and you meet the parameters, they don't have to apply for a labor market impact assessment. And then even after that fact, you're given tons of bonus points, over 50 bonus points. By the time you factor in the, your abilities, if you can speak in English or French, but the bonus points that the comprehensive ranking system gives, and even within provinces, they identify that one of the factors they're looking at is the ability to speak French, even if it's, obviously these provinces outside of the province of Quebec. So there is a number of, if you're someone who is from France or a French-speaking country and it's your language of habitual use, and you're fluent, boy, you have a lot of very, very good options to come to Canada. All right. Okay, let's see if we can tackle this one. It might be a little bit more than we can chew here. So more than likely, we'll probably be ringing the triangle here and saying book a consult, Gregorio. But says in February, applied for the TR to PR open work permit. Okay, so back in 2021, the TR to PR application was submitted, and so now with that, based on that acknowledgement of receipt, Gregorio has applied for the open work permit. But the processing takes 150 days. Well, hopefully it's 150. Maybe it's going to be more by the time we're through this pandemic. 2 weeks ago, IRCC said I'm eligible for the post-grad, the 18-month extension from April the 6th. And free and fast. I like that that comment. Should I apply for it and just wait which one gets a faster answer? What's your thoughts, Alicia? I love leaving these ones to you.
Well, I mean, if they're saying that you can opt in, then sure, right? If it's for sure all free and you can do the opt-in, then great. Um, if you still need to apply, keep in mind that if you're doing an application under the new public policy, you don't have to pay that $100 open work permit fee, but you still need to pay the $155 work permit processing fee. And this is where a bunch of people get tripped up. So if you're able to opt in, then great, sure, do it. I see no downside in opting in. If you do need to make an application, though, for the current public policy program, be careful about how you do it because you still do need to pay the 155, but you wouldn't be paying it online with your credit card. You'd be going to the other website, you'd be doing a barcoded fee receipt, and you'd be uploading proof of that. And hopefully it doesn't sound like you'd have to do a restoration, but just be careful about making sure that you're paying the proper fees.
Yes. All right. Joe Sepeda says, can I invite my wife's mother to Canada on my graduation, or only my parents are allowed?
So you can invite family members. It does depend quite a bit on your family member's country of nationality or your wife's mother's country of nationality. Um, the people who are in Canada would be writing that invitation letter. Depends on whether you have any permanent residence or any larger connection to Canada. Normally, if you're inviting family members, they want somebody to be a permanent resident or a Canadian citizen, and they're writing that letter of invitation saying that they can stay with them. It becomes a little bit harder if everybody's a foreign national. You can still write a letter saying, look, I have an apartment, I've got a place for my mother-in-law to stay, we've got enough room, we can pick her up, we can cover the expenses for food while she's here. A lot of it all comes down to temporary intent. Does your mother-in-law have a job? Can she prove she's going back to it? Does she have property in her home country? Does she have other family members? Has she traveled in the past? Has she shown a compliance with immigration laws and rules? And has she ever been refused? So those are all things you'd want to talk about.
Absolutely. Okay, this is a question from Kevin, and I'll tackle this one. Kevin says, I'm a CEC applicant currently working remotely from home while residing in Quebec. Now, I don't see that the employer is, I don't see it saying that the employer is outside of Quebec, but maybe we'll make that assumption. How should I represent my situation in an LOE? I have an intention to move to Ontario, but cannot make the move now. So, Kevin, this is one of the classic challenges, the conundrums that we run into. You can count Quebec-based work experience towards the express entry CRS. But when it comes to finalizing your permanent resident application, you need to demonstrate an intention to reside outside the province of Quebec. And this is one of the things that we cover a lot in the course and especially in the master classes. We talk about this at length, but your job is to demonstrate that intention. And a mere statement that I plan on living in Ottawa, Ontario, may not be enough to satisfy an officer if you are currently in Quebec working, for example, for a Quebec-based employer, and you have all of your ties in Quebec. So, what can you do, or, how do you explain it? Obviously, you're going to include a letter of explanation. You're going to provide whatever evidence to show, but I'll be honest, I don't mess around with this. And I tell people, look, if you truly want to go through express entry and you have no pathways in Quebec, then move. If you are, as you say you are, working remotely while residing in Quebec, well, there should be no reason you can't work remotely from Ontario or another province. So you need to be very, very careful, because they will shoot you down every single time, Kevin. And I don't take any chances. So start the steps now to move. Don't sit and wait, because they know if you're working in Quebec and you get permanent residence, that there's a very strong, likelihood you're just going to go straight back to Quebec, and that's not what the program was designed for. All right, let's see who is next on our list. Well, on the same topic, I think this is a great one on the Quebec kind of line of thought. So New Media says, hey, Mark and Alicia, Quebec has a REMA. The rest of Canada has express entry. Is it possible to apply for both, and should you do that?
Well, I would say, what's the ultimate intention, right? Do you really want to live in Quebec? Do you have ties to Quebec? Are you French speaking? Have you gone to school in Quebec? Do you have an employer in Quebec? Because if the answer is yes to all those questions, then maybe you go through the Quebec system and you go through a REMA and you apply for PR that way. If, in fact, you really don't want to ultimately settle in Quebec, then it's just like Mark said. And I've had clients who were exactly in this situation. And I said, I'm not comfortable with you submitting this application unless and until you have actually moved outside of the province of Quebec and you actually have a lease agreement for your new residence in Ontario. And that's what we did. So we made sure right before that EAPR was submitted, there was an actual lease agreement. That person had actually moved right before they submitted that EAPR. So if you do ultimately want to live anywhere other than Quebec, I would say apply for express entry, but prove and move.
Yes. And I'll add one other thing. So you're in somewhat of a conflicting situation here. If you're submitting two applications, one to express entry where you need to demonstrate an intention to live outside of Quebec, and then at the same time you're submitting an application to Quebec saying, I have an intention to reside in Quebec, well, which one are you misrepresenting? And when you attest and you sign off on your applications, you're always attesting that everything is true, complete, and correct. And within there, you're also acknowledging that your information will be shared with everywhere, other provinces, other PNP programs, between the federal government. And is there a possibility that they could look and say, well, wait a minute, Numidia has an application to Quebec where Numidia is stating that they have an intention to reside in Quebec, and then express entry, they've said that they intend to live in Ottawa, Ontario. Well, you can run into huge problems. So under no circumstance do I ever advise someone to do that. Like Alicia said, make up your mind and then proceed in that direction. Okay. Okay. How about this one? Baba comes back from, I think Barry Baba, that's the France one. Can you explain about the review request status for eligibility? So this is in the context of express entry. And I think what they're getting at is they've got the GCMS notes back, and it says that that there's a review request, which basically means, and I can jump on this one too, Alicia, basically means that they probably have some doubt about some document and they need to send it for further assessment by, by another officer, a supervisor. Often we see this in the context of work history, where they need to do a review, or there's some inconsistency in your personal history and work history, the dates don't line up, things like that. But when it happens, we strongly, strongly encourage people to book a consult so that we can sort it out. And these are things that we work with clients on. If you see in your GCMS notes that there is some issue like this, then we recommend you book a consult, and then we'll go in and we'll take a look at it. And, because if an officer is saying a review is required, it basically means that they're not accepting what you've put in your original application.
Yeah.
And
so anything you've claimed points for, make sure that you can actually demonstrate and prove, and there might be a gap somewhere.
yeah, exactly. Alicia has another consult here in about 4 minutes, so we'll just go two more questions here, and then we'll wrap it up. let's just see here. What is a good one to use? Okay, here's one. This one is from Iffy. Iffy says, I have a post-grad work permit and I'm working, but I'm wondering if I'd still need an LMIA to apply for express entry under CEC. This
So
is,
if this really depends on your points, right? Well, it depends on your minimum eligibility score, so your 67 point selection grid, and then it depends on your CRS score. So make sure that if you want to qualify for one of the programs, you have that at least 1 year of continuous work outside of Canada if you want to qualify for federal skilled worker. If you're going to be applying for CEC, then you need to have at least 1 year, so 1,560 hours, 52 weeks of full-time or full-time equivalent work experience inside Canada. You can get that on a post-grad work permit if you build up enough skilled work experience inside Canada. Sometimes people just don't have the ability to build up enough time because they couldn't find a job or they had a layoff or they weren't able to get enough hours to qualify. And if that happens, you might be forced into a situation of trying to find an employer to get a labor market impact assessment to do a change of conditions on your work permit so you get an employer specific work permit. The good thing about that is it's going to extend your ability to work in Canada, give you a little bit more time to hopefully get an ITA. And if your employer is actually willing to give you an offer of arranged employment, if they say that they will continue to employ you for a year after you get your PR, and you go through all the little requirements on that employer specific work permit to prove that you've done so, then you might be eligible for those 50 arranged employment points, which makes a big difference. Take a look at my article. I went through arranged employment in detail.
yeah, and we'll just hit that really, really quick here. So if you go back to Holthe Immigration Law, remember, we've got all this great content. We've got a podcast that Alicia are doing. We're going to record another episode on Friday that's related to the foreign worker program and business immigration, but check out the blogs. We've got a ton of blogs. You can search them. Like Alicia said, in terms of job offers and how that all works, we've got blog posts on that. And then we'll wrap up here. Our last comment, Dinma slipped in a little super chat. So the question is, can I apply for citizenship alone? My spouse and I have our PR, but I have met my requirements. So can I apply without my spouse?
Yep. Yeah, for sure you can. So you can definitely put that application in for citizenship, and you'd want to do so as soon as you're eligible. You've got to make sure that you write the knowledge exam and that you get that application in the queue, because this is one of the processing times that's probably going to get negatively affected by the strike. So these
Yeah,
citizenship applications are one that might drag on for a while. So if you meet the requirements, you might as well submit the application.
yeah, I agree. All right, well, we'll let Alicia drop off and I'll stick around and answer just a few more questions. I don't have something immediately after today, which is quite miraculous. So I'll stick around for a little bit, but thanks so much, Alicia, for being our resident expert here. Oh, our resident knowledgeable person on immigration. And we really appreciate the time. So, all right, we'll let you go. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, so here I am. Let's do a few more questions here. Let's see what's going on. But yeah, I can't tell you how often, guys, when it comes to all of these specific questions that you're asking, I can't reiterate enough how important it is to just slide over and book a consult. And the earlier you do it, the better, because often what happens is that people will wait until something bad happens and then they'll come and book a consult with us. And when that happens, often there is nothing that we can do at that stage. And I love nothing more when people connect with us and say, oh, I need to develop an immigration strategy, a plan for not just now, but where I want to go. And the earlier you book it and the earlier you meet with us and we can strategize, then we can point you in the right direction so that you're not losing time. Take us back to that IEC candidate I talked about. Well, she had spent a ton of time working on the working holiday work permit, as a ski instructor. Well, ski instructors have dropped down to tier 4, so none of that work experience is even eligible for permanent residence. So she's basically starting from scratch, and that whole year is gone. So there we go, a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, let's just see here what is next on our list. Iffy, you're very, very welcome. Okay, let's see what I can do. I'm just going to check my calendar just quickly, you guys, and just see what I have coming up. Okay, so it's at 1:30. I have another consult. All right, so I've got some time to answer a few more. Okay, and then Juste, I think we are going to be able to chat about this in the masterclass this evening, because I think you're a part of that masterclass, aren't you? But let's see. So how to correctly fill the express entry work history application if the position was changed in one company, if my company was merged with another company, but duties were the same. Okay, so you're going to separate it out. Any positional changes, even though the duties are really close, if you're promoted to a more senior position, there's usually some more responsibility or a wage change. So I separate those out, including the time in which the people, the individuals have worked. And then if the company who merged with the other company, and if there's a new letterhead or a new company name, I always have them try to reference that in the initial paragraph, saying, this is ABC Inc. We were formerly RJL Limited. And we merged on this date. I will put that in the preamble to the letter of the record of, basically the letter of support or the reference letter that we prepare for the company. So that's often how we do that, Juste. And but yeah, the knock code may be the same, but I break it down. I do. Why? Because that's what the completeness check instructions, the program delivery instructions actually say from IRCC. So I don't mess around. If they say to do something, guess what? I do it. Okay, let's see what is next here on our list of goodness. We've got so many good questions. Okay, JJ says, hello, I've just submitted my PR application CEC and my postgrad is expiring in November and I'm not sure whether to apply for a work permit extension or bridging work permit. What do you suggest? I always like to do independent work permits. So if you're eligible for the postgrad, I like to do it because it's not contingent upon anything else. It's something you're accessible to that can extend for 18 months, and heaven forbid your CEC application gets rejected because you didn't subscribe to my step-by-step course or you didn't retain Alicia or I to help you and it gets bounced. Well, then you don't have a work permit that is relying on that. So I tend to if you're eligible for the 18-month post-grad, I almost always will pursue that first. And then you always, later on, if your permanent resident application is still being processed or that initial, this secondary post-grad, that 18-month extension one that you are applying for, if that one comes to an end, then you still have the option of the bridging open work permit after. So that's how I do with that, JJ. Okay, let's see here. What else do we have? Okay, Nisha says, my daughter just got her study permit approved in Canada. She's a US citizen. Does she need to submit passport for visa? No. In the context of US citizens, they do not need to submit their passports. So often what they'll ask is just for a copy of the data page of the passport. And the interesting part too, now I'm assuming this is in concert with some application that you're submitting, yeah, no visa is going to be imprinted into a US citizen's passport. Instead, she will have an electronic travel authorization for travel. Well, actually, a US citizen doesn't even need an ETA. So more than likely what they're going to ask, and the instructions, you just need to follow the instructions, Nisha, but they're probably going to ask for a copy of the data page from the passport. All right. Good question. Okay. Santa says, submitted my application on, looks like March the 30th, 2023. So we're talking just, a month ago. My passport will expire on January the 22nd, 2024. Should I renew it? If possible, allowed, and inform IRCC? Yes, renew it. I always renew. Okay. All right. Zafira says, my classes will end this week. Do I stop working on the last day of the semester, Friday, or once the grade has been posted? Thank you. When you receive confirmation in the letter, in the form of a letter from school that you've completed the requirements of your program, that's when you stop working. And remember, you can only work, even up until that stage, you can only work the 20 hours per week. But the key is, once you receive confirmation of graduation, then you have to stop. But if you prep and prepare your postgrad work permit application on that same day, and you submit it all in one day, then you're not going to have any gap, and you can start working full-time once you've submitted the postgrad. All right, let's see here. What else do we have? Coletso says, hey, Mark, currently have my postgrad, but got stuck outside Canada. Oh, no. This is why we always warn people not to travel if they have any choice while they're waiting, especially when they're trying to claim work experience and they need the work experience. So stuck outside Canada, still paying rent and been waiting for TRV application for 9 months. Should I reapply? Oh, Coletso, that is so tough. I have to ring the bell here because I can't give any specific legal advice on that. I need to know a whole lot more about your situation. All right. David Benia says, hey, is it okay if my job letter to claim Canadian experience says that I work full-time 40 hours? Okay, that's good. Or have to be per year. I will put the T4s. So the 40 hours per week and the wage per hour and have to be per year. I will put the T4s. Well, it does say in the program delivery instructions, those completeness check website, that they want to see the annual salary. So I always try to do that if I can. If the employer is able to put the annual salary and just drop it in that letter, then that's fine. I don't think I've seen an actual refusal where someone had put an hourly wage in there, but I never ever want to leave any discretion to the officer. And yeah, I put a T4 in regardless, as well as the pay slips. All right, next here we have Deepak. Deepak says, is Canadian experience obtained before getting restoration fees, 200 payment request from IRCC valid for CEC? Okay, is Canadian experience obtained before getting restoration fees payment request from IRCC valid for CEC? I'm not exactly sure, Deepak. If you're applying any kind of a restoration, you can't keep working during that restoration period. If your work permit expired, or then you're out of status and you applied to restore, you can't work. So I'm not quite sure in that situation. I hope you haven't worked without authorization. Once again, a consult is the direction I'd push you. Okay, Juste says, another follow-up, does getting a PR for a particular NOC number doesn't mean that we can't do another job? No, if you go through and you obtain permanent resident status, Juste, you can work wherever you want. You have all the rights and privileges of a Canadian citizen, except the right to vote. Next one is Lima. Hey, Mark, my postgrad expires in August 2024, and I still got the OPT in email. That is weird, Lima. I can't even answer that. I don't know why you would have gotten that extension one when opt-in when the postgrad expires August. I don't know. I can't answer that. Crazy things are happening. Okay, next, Mohammed says, hey, Mark and Alicia, I have got an approval after 1 year of applying, and I'm in another country now. IRCC said I have to send my passport within 30 days, or IRCC could refuse. How accurate is that? Well, you can always ask for an extension of time, but I don't mess around. If they say they want it, I do everything in my power to get it. And then if I have something outside of my control that's preventing me from submitting the passport, then I make sure I detail that with supporting evidence as complete as I possibly can, and then ask for an extension. But as always, anything like this where the life of your PR application or the death of your PR application is at stake, I encourage you to book a consult. Okay, Nefemi says, I heard you could go to the border and apply to get a same-day initial postgrad work permit. How true is this? Oh my goodness. I don't advise anyone to go down to do a flagpole. Can you apply for a postgrad work permit at a port of entry? Maybe, but I can tell you, I would avoid it at all costs, and I would never advise anyone. Has it been done? Yes, Nefemi, it has been done. But there are so many things that can go sideways, so many problems that can arise, and the border officers are not immigration officers. And their purpose is enforcement, not facilitation. And I know because I was one. And you want to be very, very loath to go down there unless there is a very, very good reason why you're doing it and you can justify it to the officer. They do not like people who are trying to jump the queue and go down to the port of entry instead of applying from within Canada. So yeah, so that's my view. Remember, when you apply for your initial postgrad work permit, the date that you submit that application, you can work. You can work full time from the date that you submit it. So just food for thought. Okay, next is Khaled says, I've received an ITA under Express Entry PNP, and I also meet the requirements for CEC. Do I just need a letter of explanation to say that I meet CEC? Yeah, and I think you're talking about proof of funds, right? Something that I cover at length in my Express Entry course, right here. Oh, maybe it's not right there. Let's see, where is it? I got to change my my scenes around here. Right here. And I don't have Alicia with me, so we'll drop her off here. But yeah, this in the course, I cover this at length. And really, it's as simple as this too. If you go here, CEC, proof of funds, IRCC, let's just do a quick little search. This is the one that I refer to a lot, this answer. Not now, I don't need that. So we'll just go in here and see if it opens up. So you can see here, if you're drawn under the Canadian Experience class, it says you do not have to meet the funds requirement if you're invited. The system currently asks all applicants to provide proof of funds If you don't need to provide them, then just upload a letter explaining that you've been applied under the CEC or that you have a valid job offer. So quick little flipperooski there. And let's see if I can adjust my little screens here. I wonder if I can. Maybe that'll make things easier. There, it's easier for me. Okay, on the fly, tech, video, answering questions. All right. Okay, Gala says, I studied 1 year, 8 months program, was granted a 3-year post-grad. What the heck? I don't know what that's about. Done with 1 year Canadian experience, now waiting for CRS score draws to go down. Okay, well, congratulations. I've never seen, well, they shouldn't have issued you a 3-year post-grad when you only completed 1 year program, but hey, roll with it. Roll with it. Okay. Okay, and then just to follow up, Hossein says, do the officers or the IRC system send out police clearance requests without looking at passport stamps and et cetera? Thanks so much. Well, yeah, remember, you don't have to provide, past stamps from previous passports in the context of an express entry application. Do they scan through the passports? Well, it would be a manual process if they were to do that. And remember, it's 6 months in a row, not cumulatively, that they're looking at over the past 10 years since turning 18. So yeah, I would say it's not customary that they do it, but any officer could, I guess, if they wanted to. All right, let's see what else we've got cruising as we're going down our list. Now I'm going to start pulling this out manually. I see that we've got Emanuela. I'll just highlight this. There is too much in your question here, Emanuela, including personal information, for me to address that question. So I recommend that you slide over to our firm and you click on speak to a lawyer. And the easiest way you can do that is just to click over here on Holthe Immigration Law, type in holthelaw.com or click on the link below. And from here, you have the ability to book a consult with one of our lawyers. And Cedric, like I said, is going to be moving on at the end of this month, but he'll maintain close ties to our office. We like Cedric. Okay, let's zip through here and we'll get to another question. We're doing pretty good here for time. Okay, Simran says, as per CIC News, IRCC going for a strike. Well, who cares what CIC News says? At the end of the day, it's common knowledge and across all media outlets, although CIC News does a good job. Will the draws stop too? I think it's unlikely. Personally, I think it's unlikely that the draws will stop because they still need, and a lot of that process is automated. They don't need officers to process, but they still have goals and strategic plans for how the actual levels plans need to be filled. And they don't want to be in a position that they were in 2020 when everything locked down and people couldn't come and land. And then they had the crazy February 13th, 27,332 ITA draw. Yeah, crazy stuff. So I think it's going to continue forward, but we'll see on Wednesday. We'll see come next week, unless they do something crazy and do another round of invitations right now. Who knows? Okay, let's see what's next. Let's see. This one is Zafir says, I'm in Ontario and would like to book a consult. Does it matter that you're in a different province? Can you help anywhere in Canada? Absolutely. Absolutely. This is what we do. It's not just Canada, it's everywhere in the world. And you can go right to our firm website and you can check it out, you guys. So go to our website, click on About Us, check out our approach right here. Because within our approach, we go into depth how our system is just different. It's direct lawyer to client. There's no one in between. There's no assistant, no paralegal. You maintain control over your application. You can see here, and it's a fast track process. It saves on unnecessary immigration legal fees, and the experience is truly innovative. At least we feel it is in the way that we do it. And so the whole direct lawyer to client collaboration all starts with a consultation. And that consultation, when you click on it, allows you to book with Alicia. So for example, if you want to book a consult with Alicia, all you have to do is click on this, and then you just choose the date, the next date that's available. You choose the time that's available. And then from there, it's automated. And the next thing you see is me right here with you, helping you. And I work with clients on all kinds of applications. It's all online. There's literally no, I think personally that when I'm working with clients and I'm doing it this way, when I can do my screen shares and we can work together, boy, I think it's better than being in person. Personally, that's my view. So absolutely, go book a consult. Love to connect with you. Okay. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Hamad says, oh boy, it's time for me to like raise up. I think we're just about done. I'm going up, guys. I am moving up. I'm tired of sitting down in this hard chair. So we're going to switch this up, and I am going to raise my desk up here. There we go. Oh, that's better. I just needed to stand. I spent way too much sitting, you guys. Way too much. All right, let's see what the question is. Hamad says, continuation from above. Me and my wife only lived together for 2 months in Pakistan, as she is Ukrainian. I applied Ukraine visa after marriage, but it was rejected due to war, then Canada. Okay. Applied Ukraine visa after marriage, but it was rejected due to war, then Canada. Okay, well, a consult, Hamad. Anything like that, I strongly recommend that you book a consult. Okay. All right, let's see here. Neil says, my wife is assuming my last name after marriage. Should I put her original last name or her new name on the forms? Use the name that's on her passport. Simple as that. All right, who's next? And it's a little bit more rough and tumble here because I'm pulling these up as we go. Let's see here. Okay, Ms. Gala says, hey, Mark, there was an info session of an IRCC rep at my school before, and she said, if we didn't go back to our home country, we can submit our old police clearances. Is that correct? So the rules, once again, I cover this in the Express Entry step-by-step course. If you obtained your police clearance certificate after you left your country, so in other words, you obtained it after you were no longer there, then that police clearance certificate won't expire. If you obtained it before you left and you had even 1 day there, then that police clearance certificate is only valid for 6 months. So that's basically how the rule works for the purposes of Express Entry. Okay. Let's try to touch on this one. Arsoidome says, hi, for ATP, PR Path, should the job experience in my country same position with the job offer from the employer in Atlantic or just under the same tier category? Do you know what? This one I don't have an answer to. I have not submitted an application through that program, so that is one I'm going to have to say that I don't have an answer for. All right, let's see who's next here. I love this handle. I am Diego22. How I should answer intended work in Canada in the Express Entry profile if I have a valid job offer as stated in the second bulleted point of the job offer conditions page. Well, yeah, if you have an LMIA-based work permit and you are, I'm assuming that's the one that you're looking at for job offer, an LMIA-based job offer, then as far as intended work in Canada, you can put whatever you want. Like as far as intended work, yeah, it doesn't really matter what you put in there. Yeah, so you can put it the same as that you've got the job offer or whatever you want. It really doesn't make a difference. It's more for statistical purposes. Okay, Fatih, thanks so much. Hey, Mark, you look good. That's great. Thanks. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Okay, so crazy love. Once again, this, you guys, is something that I cover in detail in the Express Entry step-by-step course. And I'll tell you that over and over again. And if you go in here, you can see that I have, this is how the course actually looks. And you can subscribe right now, even though this round of master classes are coming to an end today. You'll have access to all of this as well for life, essentially, as well as being able to attend the next master class that comes up, even though you subscribe now. So you can see here, there is over 57 lessons, okay? And when you go through and just going back to the question that was asked here, when it comes to reference letters, job descriptions, the short answer here is that the duties need to be a substantial number of those main duties, which I usually look at about 70, 75%. That's kind of what I would consider to be substantial. At least it's an initial kind of threshold. But ultimately, I have, for example, in the Mastering Your Documents module right here, you can see there's an individual lesson for every single type of document. And each individual video, and this one's 23 minutes long, goes in depth as to what you need to do to prove your work history. And I love this one because I have a ton of resources here. We have an FSW hours of work tool, a CEC hours of work tool to help you calculate your hours to make sure you have enough. A record of employment checklist you can give to employers. What if I can't get a reference letter? A whole bunch of suggestions on other things that you can do to try to prove your work history. Sample letters, knock selection tool. This is something I include with almost every single work history that I upload, is a knock selection tool, which breaks down the duties that confirms with the officer exactly why the knock that I've chosen is the correct one. And there's samples of how I build out my selection tool. In the case of this case, the sample I have is for food service supervisor. And then reference letters. How many samples do we have? Well, I've got about 30. So that's just one example of only one lesson 73. I truly believe this is the most comprehensive guide out there, and I'd strongly encourage you guys to come over here and actually subscribe to it. And join me in the next masterclass. But in that time, watch the over 10 hours of on-demand content, and then let's chat about it in the next upcoming masterclass. So those who subscribe early and get a chance to go through it, the questions that come up, then you can ask all of those in the masterclass. It's awesome. All right, so that's what I recommend for you, Crazy Love. All right, that's awesome. I love your handles. You guys make me laugh. Okay. Okay, let's see if I can address this one, Jason. I know you had some other question that wasn't quite kind of general enough nature. Can I claim work experience for a period of preparation for a certification to perform duties in an insurance role while being employed? My job before duties qualify for CEC at the moment. Jason, this one is just, I can't answer that without getting more information. So once again, I recommend that you book a consult, and I just ring the little bell, and that's what I would direct. Okay, we're just about done. I'm going to wrap it up in 2 minutes here. Let's see. I'm going to try to find some people I haven't answered questions for yet. Okay, Shale says, can I use a joint account with my parents for the proof of funds requirement? I wouldn't do it. It needs to be yours. I really want to have it yours. Now, technically, the joint account may have your parents on it, and that might be fine. But if you did choose to go down that route, then I would make sure that you have a letter showing with your parents that those funds are actually yours. But I think it's really dangerous, and it leaves open the possibility that an officer says to you, come on, Shale, are those funds really yours, or is this just your parents' account? And because those funds have to support them too. I personally would have the funds in your own account. That's what I would do. Okay, let's see what's next. Okay, Jose says, can we apply for express entry if I only have high school graduation from the Philippines on a work permit in Alberta right now? I think for you, you're going to rank really low for your comprehensive ranking system score. So I think the Alberta Opportunity Stream is probably the route that I would pursue for you, Jose. And as long as that high school graduation is equivalent to an Alberta level graduation. Okay, Neil says, thank you, Mark, but my wife doesn't have a passport. What should the last name be? Well, in that case, let's see, what was your application here? My wife is assuming my last name after marriage. Should I put her original last name or her new name on the forms? Well, if she's ultimately, depends on which passport she's going to be using, if she's coming. So if you're including her and she has the opportunity to put her new name on the passport, then do that. If that's the name that she's assuming, that's what I would do. All right, let's see here. I think we are just about at the end. I think we're going to wrap it up there. Khalid says, I'm in the course. That's awesome. I'm going to give you one of these. We haven't done these for a while. Yes, it's good. Thanks. That is fantastic. Okay, I am Diego says, sorry, I was referring to the question, was a positive LMIA issued for the job offer in Canada? My original LMIA is already expired. Oh. Well, you're still number 2. Like, are you working? So the original LMIA can have expired, but as long as you're still working on an LMIA-based work permit, then it still works for job offer points. It still does. Okay. Let's see here. We got some other things. Let's see. Okay, I think I'm going to end right there. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. I hope that the time that we spent trying to answer your questions, that these lives are useful. I know that for me, I love doing it. I've been doing it for probably almost 5 years now. It's hard to believe, every week, right? Every morning you just jump on, and every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. We've done different times over the years, but I love it. And if it wasn't for you guys, there would be no live stream. So make sure as you're connecting in and as you're, watching this, depending on which platform you're watching it on, but if you are watching on YouTube, make sure that you come here and subscribe. And please, 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 whatever you do here, let people know what we're doing, share it. And if you find things that are useful, connect in, become a member of the community. And just absolutely love to interact with people. And there's so many videos, so much content that we've produced. It's all searchable on the YouTube channel. But if you're watching it on anything else, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, wherever, just know we're really grateful. And at Holthe Immigration Law, if you need legal help, if you feel like you want to hire a representative, then it doesn't matter where you live. You can literally connect with us anywhere in the world, and we work with clients all over the world all the time. And we love it. This is what we love to do. We love to give back and offer this free advice and direction. And we are so grateful when people consider retaining us and helping, for us to help them actually submit their application right the first time. And that's what we do. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Take care. Let's see if we've got some sign-off tunes here. There we go. Got some nice little jazzy jazz. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you next week. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and subscribe to one of our courses. Express entry, spousal sponsorship, study permit. We've got courses for everything. Click on the links below. See you later.